You're listening to Slutty Society, a podcast exploring sex, sexuality, and all things in between.
Hey, yo, man, you really don't have to be out here like this broadcasting all your fucking porno shit.
Hey loves, what's up? I'm your host, Sheila J, and I am here to explore sex, sexuality, and all things in between. As always, thank you for being here to listen, and I appreciate the support I've received so far. It's been really nice. Also, thank you to anyone who has sent me feedback, stories to share, answers to my episode questions, and also questions for me. I originally planned to put all of those things at the beginning of a regular episode, but I have enough to do a full feedback episode, which I'm really excited about. I'm currently working on putting it together and plan on having that out soon. Something else I'm trying to focus on is getting my content together for Instagram. I'm horrible when it comes to social media. I'm a person that doesn't get online every day. Shit, I don't even keep the app on my phone. So when I want to post something, which is rare, or maybe if one of my friends reaches out to me and says, hey, I sent you something on Instagram, I re-download the app and then delete it again after I'm done checking or whatever, or after I'm done making my post. I'm just really protective of my energy, and I personally don't think social media is healthy in many aspects, let alone being connected to it. And I don't say that to act like I'm above it. I think anyone, all of us, can become addicted to it, myself included, which is another reason why I don't keep that shit on my phone. On the other side of things, I do realize that it's going to be a way for me to reach more people for the podcast. I just have to figure out the right balance for myself and how I'm going to go about being present for the podcast online, engage with people, because I know that's important. And also ways I'm going to set boundaries online, since I'm a person that likes to be disconnected from that world more than I prefer to be a part of it. I also keep getting asked the question why I'm not starting with video for my podcast, but in my head, I want to get the audio and the editing right first before adding something additional. That's just how my brain works when I'm working on a project. Let me master things in sections instead of taking on everything at once. You know, I think people assume when you have a podcast, it's all about getting on a mic and talking, but that's the easy part. The challenges lie in the behind the scenes shit, like editing, content creation, and the planning portion, especially if you're independent and taking on a project like a podcast alone. I don't have a team or other people doing all of these things for me. It's going to take time, it's going to take patience, and I'm sure it will come together. I have no doubts there. But all right, per usual, I'm going to discuss some topics I picked out for the episode, get into some segments related to them, and then wrap things up with a quick personal sex story. And today, I'd like to share that I received some great head recently.
Fuck yeah!
Now, I'll be honest, it started off a little not my style, not for me. There definitely was the action of spitting on my pussy and sucking on my clit. Two things I absolutely do not like. I don't like them because, well, one, this is real life. It's not a porno. I don't need my pussy spit on, especially during oral. Trust me, I have no problem getting wet if things feel good. And two, I think there's a common assumption that all women like their clit sucked on. That is not the case for me. Just how like all men don't like the same thing when it comes to oral sex. Suck my dick slow. Suck my dick faster.
Use your hands, no hands. Lick my balls. Look at me while you suck my dick.
Spit on it, spit on it, spit on it some more.
All women don't like the same thing either. Everyone is different. Everyone's body is different. For me, I have a very sensitive clit. It almost feels uncomfortable if someone is sucking on it or applying a ton of pressure to it. Just like my vibrators, I only use 2 of the settings because not all of them feel good to me. Not all of them feel good to my pussy, but I'm sure the ones that I don't like, someone else likes. It feels good to someone else. You can't assume what you do to one person sexually works with another person, but going back to the head I received, he spit, he sucked, then I stopped him and explained what works for me, what I like, which is more of really soft kisses on my clit, soft licks, almost like you're making out with it, just really light. I only like a tiny bit of additional pressure right when I start to come. Again, my clit is just very sensitive. That's just how I'm made. But he was receptive to that. He listened, and it turned into something absolutely fucking amazing. Now, I want to put a big emphasis on the fact that he listened because there have been many experiences I've had sexually where I voiced what I like or what I don't like or what I want during sex. And I don't know if it's because of ego, because of people being stuck in their ways, simply not caring about my pleasure, or maybe they weren't used to having anyone giving them constructive criticism when it comes to sex. Who knows what the reasons were, but my needs were completely ignored in those situations. And now I'm at a stage in my sexuality where I don't put up with, or I guess I don't allow myself to endure selfish sex or sex that is very one-sided. I think when I was younger, especially as a woman, it was something I fucking tolerated just from being uneducated about things and just how society was and still is to some extent about female sexuality. But now I feel comfortable and I feel confident speaking up, and doing that in this situation resulted in me receiving some, again, amazing head. But all right, I have a question for you. Each episode, I'm going to present a question, hoping for your feedback. And for this episode, since I talked about everyone being different and liking different things sexually, and since I'm talking about oral, the question is, do you have an uncommon request when you're receiving oral sex? If so, what is it? I want to hear about something unusual, something different from the norm. You can send me your answer by DMing me at Slutty Society Podcast on Instagram, emailing me at sluttysocietypodcast@gmail.com, or leave me a voicemail to play at 971-361-6596. I'll also have the question on the episode's Spotify page for answers as well, thanks to Spotify for Podcasters, the platform I use to create this podcast. I'll go over feedback in a later episode. Once again, I want to know, do you have an uncommon request when you receive oral sex? If so, what is it? Okay, so I want to be honest with something. I want to share that in my past, I used to have, let's say, a PTSD of sorts surrounding giving head. And this is specific to sucking dick. Now, I've definitely eaten a vagina or 3 in my lifetime, but in my past, sucking dick gave me anxiety. Let me explain why. So, when I was in high school, I had this boyfriend, and I still remember the first time I let him come in my mouth like it was yesterday, because his cum had a very distinct, highly acidic taste to it. I'm not going to lie, it was awful. And of course, the first thing you would assume is that it was the result of an STI, but that wasn't the case, I made sure. That's just how his cum tasted. And being a teenager, how do you empathetically go about telling someone that their cum tasted horrible, right? I didn't say anything, and that experience followed me into my 20s. It gave me anxious energy when it came to sucking dick. I would automatically get nervous that someone's cum was going to have that strong taste. And of course, now at 36, I've gotten past that. I can suck a dick and put together a grocery list in my head at the same time. I can swallow cum like a shot of alcohol. But I had to go through some experiences in my 20s where I wasn't confident expressing that anxiety. And at the same time, I'm sure it showed. I'm sure it was evident in my dick sucking abilities. On top of that, I was dating people that instead of telling me what to do or coaching me or giving me any kind of constructive criticism, they made me feel bad, which only made my anxiety worse. So I had this fear surrounding the potential taste of someone's cum and fear of being shamed. And as a person who went through a very violent physical and emotional abusive relationship when I was around 19, the shaming piece probably affected me even more. At some point, I'll talk about how that experience with that particular relationship, how that affected sex and sexuality for me, how that kind of tied in. I just want to keep things lighter for now, especially for this episode, but I do think it's going to be important for me to talk about that on the podcast at some point. But going back to that anxiety surrounding oral sex with men, it took me meeting someone who was able to have a healthy conversation with me, someone who was able to communicate their needs in a positive way, which helped me be receptive and especially helped me build my confidence with oral sex. It took away the anxiety I had, and at the same point, I stopped worrying about horrible tasting cum as well. I think we're all deserving of healthy communication when it comes to someone expressing their needs sexually, and on the receiving end of that, we have to be open to really listening as long as that delivery isn't malicious and it's brought to us in a productive manner. All right, let me switch it up a bit. Since I've overcome my oral anxiety, I want to talk about a few common positions for giving and receiving. I might as well get the one that I love but also hate out of the way, and that is sitting on someone's face. I'll start off with the positive side. If I'm hovering over your face and you're actually eating my pussy, great. I'll probably kiss you once I get off, and I guess let's get off literally once I climb down because it's rare for me to come from sitting on someone's face. For me, it's kind of just a warm up for other activities. I just haven't had the best of luck coming from sitting on someone's face. I don't think it's my thing. But the other side of that is if I'm up there and the only thing that is going on is me grinding on your face, just smothering your nose with my vagina, and you're just laying there, how do I know that you're still breathing? Flick your tongue or something and let me know you're still alive, right? And when it comes to giving, if a woman is involved, I don't mind a face writing. I know how to be engaged, but I think the equivalent to a woman sitting on my face would be a man fucking my face. And fucking my mouth, I guess, if you want to be technical about it, but just on top of me putting that thing in and out of my mouth. And the one thing I'll say here is please don't try to take my life with your dick. As long as you are aware that a few choky noises here and there for fun, that's cool. But if I'm actually choking, please slow down, ease it in and out, and find a good rhythm so I can actually inhale oxygen at the same time. That's all I can ask for when you're fucking my face. Okay, the next common oral sex position I want to talk about is laying back or sitting back and relaxing while receiving oral. So I think this is my favorite way to not only receive it, but to also give it. I want the person I'm giving it to laying back. Lay on the bed. What a timeless classic, but I like this way regardless of if I'm with a man or a woman. I feel like I can concentrate better and I have better focus on how it feels to the person on the receiving end. This makes me think of another oral activity where my focus isn't 100%, and that would be during 69. So I think 69 is another common oral sex position. And I think I mentioned in another episode I like to multitask, but this would be the one instance where multitasking isn't my friend. I don't think I've ever came from 69 either. And of course, it doesn't have to be about the orgasm. Obviously, for me, it isn't in this situation, but I'm so zoned in on the head I'm giving. I don't know what you're doing down there to me. I have fucking tunnel vision during 69. All right, I want to wrap this part up. So, the last one I wanted to talk about is giving head while someone is standing up and I'm on my knees. In my experience, 9 times out of 10, when this is with a man, he is essentially trying to fuck my face in this position. And I have one memory, I think, of eating vagina this way, where I'm on my knees and the person is standing up. And we were actually taking a shower together. I shaved her vagina and then ate her out in the shower afterwards. It's actually a really nice memory I have, but I'd say my only con about giving someone head while they're standing up and I'm on my knees is when carpet is involved. Rug burns sting like a bitch. I like to grab a pillow to put under my knees if one's handy, but sometimes when you're in the moment, that's not always an option. Okay, I think I'm going to end my thoughts there and get started with my segments. Let's go ahead and get into In the Media. In the Media is where I find an article, news report, or story related to sex and or sexuality. And for this episode, of course, all of the stories are surrounding oral sex. The first one reads, General Assembly approves decriminalizing oral sex. So this article is specific to the state of Maryland, but just an FYI, there are several U.S. states where oral sex is currently illegal. So the article reads, HB 0131, which is Criminal Law, Unnatural or Perverted Sexual Practice Repeal, would repeal criminalization of oral sex between, and here are the key words, consenting adults. Current law prohibits Marylanders from placing the person's sexual organ in the mouth of another or of an animal, or committing another unnatural or perverted sexual practice with another or with an animal. Well, they definitely should keep the second part in place. Let's not fuck the faces of the animals, but violation of this law is a misdemeanor and includes imprisonment up to 10 years and a fine not exceeding $10,000. Now, Democratic sponsors of the bill said repealing the current statute is necessary to protect the constitutional right to privacy between consenting adults. At the hearing, some backers said the statute and other such sex laws are historically discriminatory for the LGBTQ plus community. A Maryland statute can be directly interpreted to criminalize all activity that is not vaginal intercourse, making it discriminatory, said Jer Welcher, Deputy Chief Appeals Counsel in the Office of the Attorney General. And several Republicans tried to stop the bill and imposed it on the floor out of concern that the statute is useful in convicting child sex predators. Okay, so it's clear this is about consenting adults. Every time it's mentioned that these type of laws are discriminatory or that they mention the LGBTQ plus community, there are always people bringing up child predators, and I don't understand that. It drives me fucking crazy. No one is talking about children here. We're talking about fucking consenting adults and possibly animals. No children are mentioned. You guys make no sense. Anyways, next, MC Pipakina. I probably fucked that name up, but she created a new scandal and has oral sex with a fan in the middle of a concert. So she is a Brazilian singer, and during one of her performances, MC Pipakina was on stage performing her most popular songs. At one point, a female fan got on stage, and that's when the scandal started. Both of the women began to turn up the heat and exchanged kisses and caresses before MC Pipakina, who was wearing a dress, lay down on the stage. The fan pulled up her clothes and began to perform oral sex on her in front of the stunned audience. The artist was not spared from criticism, most of which was directed at the fact that fans wanted to see her perform and not have sex in front of the audience. In fact, most of the comments were directed at the appropriateness of the timing. I think here, I'm curious to know, when is the appropriate time during a performance to get some head? Is it mid-show, at the end of the show? How do you evaluate that? All right, moving on. I have 2 more articles, and they are actually from the great state of Florida. And since so many stories I have come out of Florida, I thought I'd make them a special intro for whenever they are mentioned.
Oh man, that's Florida right there.
Yeah, dang right.
Police arrested 30-year-old man Tuesday, accusing him of shooting another man multiple times after ill-fated October sex meetup in Florida City. Oral Martin was charged with attempted murder. Police said the victim followed Martin to the bus stop at Northwest 12th Street and Redland Road and then drove to an undisclosed location to perform the sex act. Afterwards, Martin began to act weird towards the victim and make him feel uncomfortable, the report states. The man then drove Martin back to where his bike was located at the bus stop. Police said the victim sent Martin money on a Cash App as they spoke about the sexual act not occurring. Martin then asked the victim for more money, but the victim had no more money to give, police wrote. Police said Martin then pulled a gun from his waist and shot the man multiple times. According to the police, the victim ran from the bus stop and hid in a nearby bushy area where he collapsed and was later located. The victim was able to provide detectives with a Cash App account and a description of the shooter. Police said the account belonged to Martin's sister. According to the report, Martin, a parolee and convicted felon, was already in custody on unrelated charges, leading police to formally arrest him. So it seems like this was an oral transaction. Okay, last one, another one from Florida that happened last summer, and I remember when this one was in the news.
2 people are recovering tonight after this head-on collision in Fort Lauderdale. As for what caused the crash, well, police say the female passenger was performing sex acts on the driver, causing him to lose control and hit this FedEx truck. This happened on North Ocean Boulevard and 19th Street. We're told the pair had minor injuries.
At the time of the crash, the woman inside the SUV was performing oral sex on the male driver, according to Fort Lauderdale Fire Rescue, who responded to the scene. There were 2 people inside the FedEx truck, but their injuries were minor. The driver of the SUV sustained injuries to his private area due to what was going on at the time of the crash, according to Fort Lauderdale Fire Rescue. The friendly way to say she bit his dick. That's it for In the Media. It's time to get to the part of the episode where I provide you with some random sex-related facts because, well, I'm a fucking nerd. This is the more shit you know. And in this this episode, you're going to learn some fun facts about semen. Number 1, the average ejaculation is about a teaspoon in size and can contain 5 to 25 calories. Who knew swallowing cum was diet friendly? Number 2, 1 teaspoon of semen contains hundreds of proteins and healthy vitamins like vitamin C, B12, calcium, magnesium, zinc, and potassium. No need for multivitamins if you have access to dick. Number 3, semen contains several chemicals including serotonin, oxytocin, and various hormones that may act as mood enhancers, a natural antidepressant. Alright, that's it for the more shit you know. Remember, a teaspoon a day keeps the doctor away, and I hope you learned a few things you didn't know before. Okay, loves, before I wrap up the episode, I want to tell you a story. In this episode, I have 2 stories, and the first one I'll call Just Visiting. A friend of mine planned to visit me during a weekend from out of town. She asked me if she could bring her friend, who was a mutual acquaintance that I had been around before with her in the past. I told my friend that was fine, she could come as well. The day they arrive, we hang out. That evening, we make drinks at my place and go out to several lounges afterwards. When we return, my friend passes out on my couch in my living room. I go to my bedroom and her friend goes to a separate bedroom. In the middle of the night, there's a knock on my door. Half asleep, I answer it, and it's my friend's friend. She asked me to sleep in my bed, and I didn't think anything of it or ask why since I was half asleep. So we get in my bed, I fall asleep for a few minutes, and the next thing I know, she's kissing me and she asks to eat me out. At first I say no, and I was really confused because we've never flirted or expressed any attraction to each other. She asks to eat me out again and tells me it's all she wants to do and then we can go back to sleep. I give in, I let it happen, she eats my pussy, and we did just that, went to sleep and never spoke of it again. I'd like to call the next story Whole Foods. I'm out and about running errands and I stop at Whole Foods to get a few items. As I'm shopping, this woman approaches me and compliments my makeup. She proceeds to ask what brands I use and so on. After the quick small talk, I finish getting what I need and leave the store. About a week later, I visit the same Whole Foods again. And coincidentally, I'm approached by the same woman who happens to be shopping there again as well. She compliments me, wonders if I live in the area, and tells me she does as well. She also tells me she doesn't know many people and hasn't been here that long. We exchange numbers and end up texting from time to time. The conversation is friendly. Eventually, we go to a few dinners, and at one point, I meet her at her house before we go out. While I'm at her house, she briefly introduces me to her husband, and then we leave. Some time goes by, we've still been texting and hanging out here and there as friends, and eventually she lets me know she wants to ask me something. She proceeds to ask if I would consider having a threesome with her and her husband. I let her know I need to think about it and suggest all 3 of us hang out so I can assess the vibe. We had never hung out with her husband prior. I had only met him that one time briefly. The three of us end up hanging out a few times. Then one night, one thing led to another, and they both ended up taking turns eating my pussy. An event that led to us having several threesomes over time. Okay, loves, that's it for the episode. Don't forget to follow the podcast on Instagram at Slutty Society Podcast. You can also send me feedback, questions, dirty thoughts, and sex-related stories via email at sluttysocietypodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you later. Bye, loves.